Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and tonight we launch a new show, Working with Energies. And I'm proud to have here Jean-Louis de Biasi, who is the author of Mysteries of the Aura, a truly amazing book. I don't know if it's coming across clear. But anyway, without further ado, Jean-Louis. Yes, there it goes. You got it. I looked through the book and read a little bit here and there in preparation for undertaking the entire journey, which I will, and that's very unusual for me. But I will take this entire journey because it seemed so amazing. What inspired you to write this book?
This is a work I started very long time ago. So this is not a new discovery. This is a new way to explain that, because I already wrote 2 books about that in French a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So I revisited the books, upgrade the book, do a better book in English. So this is the first one. And my wife and I, we focused really on practices and on the way to present an effective and very progressive, not journey, but system to help anyone who can start from really the beginning without seeing anything to the highest level you can reach. So this is what is motivating us to give to anyone very useful and effective keys.
And how would you define the aura? Because I've seen it defined in very many ways, and my experiences with the aura have been kind of diverse as well. So how would you define that energy field that surrounds us and gives us so much information?
You give the answer.
Okay.
Already an energy field around us, yes. A light around us, yes. You know that I love to say that we have 2 levels in us: a visible one, physical one, invisible one, which is really made of energy and light. And the second one that is really around us and within us. We cannot see it immediately, not everyone. Some people can from birth, but not everyone. And then you can learn to see it. So how to define it? This is the energy, your life, but there are several layers. There are several subtle bodies, not just one. So there is one very close to your physical body that is the expression of your own energy, and we can see that on you, because you are the incarnation of strength, if I am correct.
Yeah, I was able to see auras when I was very young and throughout much of my young life. And mostly when a certain emotion would take over someone, then it would seem like a color, and it would flash and move very quickly in their energies. When I grew a little older, I discovered that by meditating, I would see geometric shapes. And if I entered the geometric shapes, it would unlock memories, but they weren't just memories like you have inside your head. They were like 3-dimensional holograms of events that happened. Yes. And you can actually experience them from both the perspective of the participant and the observer at the same time, which was very freaky. And it led to some interesting realizations later in life that basically some of the spirits that I spoke to when I was younger were actually me at different parts in my life, giving myself some information.
This is really important, yes, to do that, to be able to see what is part of yourself. And if you are talking to someone or making an aura reading and so on, to really build this clear distinction between you and the other one, because you do not have to project your own aura or your own memories to someone else. So you have to know yourself very well, obviously, but in the same time, to be able to clear yourself, to have a clear vision of someone else. But I was on another show a few days ago, and I really emphasized the fact that this is not because you can see that you should see. Sometimes there is, not sometimes, always there is this kind of privacy. Because you experimented that, you can see a lot of things about someone. You can see the physical health, you can see even the emotion, you can see the memories. So you should not see.
Yes, that's a very good point.
This is intrusive, yes. So you have to wait someone asking you to do that, and after that you can do it. But what you just explained, seeing these geometrical shapes and so on with 3D dimension and memories inside and so on, this is more what we call astral aura.
Yes.
Aura, and not the etheric, for example, which is closest from the physical body.
So you use the theosophical systems then, with the etheric and the astral, and then the mental, and then the spiritual, following in a progression similar to that?
In fact, yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no. Why? Because first, we chose to use this one because the classification is very well known by anyone. And Leadbetter, Besant, all the Theosophical Society created that. They were very good at it. So this is very precise. But in the same time, that in ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, other cultures, they have another way to present that, to explain. So this is not the same. And we cannot use exactly the same words. This is not the same reality. And there is an important part of the book where we explain that, and I relate an experience I had with someone practicing Kabbalah. And I realized at this point that the aura, at least the astral energy, can be changed according to your spiritual practices, your culture, sometimes your language. Can really shape what is around you, and it shapes what is around you, but in the same time, change also the way you see the world and the cosmos. So this is an interesting way to explain, but after that, there is a chapter saying, okay, look what was used in ancient Egypt. Here is what they said. Or ancient Greece, and so on. And we realize that at this point, you can choose your own aura.
Yes, and that is phenomenal that you wrote about that, because that's something that everybody who works internally, whatever system they use, discovers every now and then, especially if you're working with a perception, is that your mind fills in the blanks that you're not picking up, and it might not be correct what your brain is putting in the reality, and you can train yourself to perceive differently, or to interpret what is happening differently, and that'll change the whole experience for you. So you're much greater control of your reality than you think you are, and these, like the theosophical way of dividing thing, that's a language. It's nothing more than a language. It's a way to communicate something that you might not be able to put into words otherwise. And yes, if you speak more than one language, you'll know what that means. You're in a different reality when you speak the other language. And the same thing with metaphysical work. Depending on what language or what system you choose to use, that's going to determine to a very great degree what you experience and how you interpret the experience. But if you switch to something else, you could have the exact same experience, but it can be totally different for you.
That's true. And in the same time, if you are not aware of that, the system changes you without your consent. That means this is happening, even if you don't want it. So this is from the perspective of freedom or inner freedom, you are not free anymore if you do not choose and if you are not aware of the phenomenon. So the first step is know yourself, be aware of what is happening. And obviously we can, and the book is talking about that, we can feel the aura, not always seeing it.
Mhm.
But if you see it, this is useful, obviously. So there are several ways. This is not because someone is blind that he cannot have a life, but not in the same way as us. He cannot see the clouds, the sky, and everything. He can visualize with stories and so on, but not the same as us. So this kind of vision, yes, you can use other senses, magnetism, energy work, and so on is one of them, very important. But the vision is useful, really. And we can, everyone can be trained on that. If the system is good, they will see it. Nobody is Mozart, or nobody can be an expert in a few seconds, but at least you can increase your psychic abilities. You can, if you know how to organize your work. Because you can be lost first if you do not know how to build the training, and at the same time, you can become delusional.
Of course.
You know that this is easy for a
Yes,
lot of
very,
people.
very easy. Because it works on, it's like hypnosis or conditioning. If something is repeated often enough, that's why commercials work the way they work. You come to believe it, and you're in a new reality, and you can very easily be indoctrinated into a different way of thinking, and drawn into like a cult or something, or a sales force organization, just through the repetition of words. And ever since this became known, since the New Thought movement publicly in America, you can spot people, including politicians, using this technique, to try to create a different reality. And we see by watching television or listening to the internet news that so many people, they accept it, and now they're in a different reality. And it is right
that, yes.
how easy it is. Yes.
Yes, the past years in America, we saw that a lot.
Yeah, yes, we did.
Yes, and this is the same when you start this kind of training. The challenge is to do that alone, because this is why we provided a few exercises. You saw that in the book, that can be performed individually, but in the same time in a couple, like a two-person work. So in this case, you have someone that can help you to control what you are doing. So let's say we are together and we are talking. I visualize a color around me, and this is a training, and I ask you to close your eyes and to try to feel or see the color. And you say green, and I was visualizing red. So what that means, I was not good at visualization, or we have all together to train a little bit more, but at least there is this kind of feedback that is really helpful, really, because it can help to avoid this delusion.
But sometimes there's a message in the difference. I remember years ago when I used to do dream work more consistently now, and I used to have dream groups. After we got into the remembering dreams and writing them down and reciting them and so on, the dream groups would always have commonalities that would penetrate everyone's dream. And as people were recounting their dreams, the story would jump from one dream to another and continue. So it was very clear to see that there was something more than what we were doing. And then I would ask them to feel how the parts that we had in common were different than the parts we didn't have in common, and to try to remember that feeling. And then after a while, with people focusing on that feeling, the dreams became much more interactive in the dream state. And that brings questions of reality, because if reality are shared experiences that a bunch of people can refer to, what happens if these experiences didn't happen here in the waking state? They happened somewhere imaginal to most people. So it led to some very interesting discussions and interesting thoughts. And I imagine that happens a lot in the exercise in this book, and I'm really looking forward now. You've ignited in me a great desire to do all the exercises and then call you back so we could discuss my experience.
And what you are talking about dreams, this is really close to the chapter about out-of-body experience, because we are working on a book about out-of-body experience, but in the book, we connect this perception of the aura of certain bodies, astral, for example, and this possibility. This is fascinating and at the same time logical. I do not have to be physically close to someone to see the aura, because of the aura and this energy extends almost infinite. So I am talking to you. We are separated by the East Coast, West Coast almost, but our energy field is in contact. So you are close to me, I am close to you, and we can have an effect on this astral level, which is really fascinating. And one can affect the other one can observe the other one. So we are not talking exactly about an out-of-body experience in this case, but this is very close to that. One step further, and we are. In fact.
And even this experience we're having now with the Zoom, we're in different locations, yet there's like an astral realm that's on our computer screens where we're all together and experiencing things. And a lot of descriptions of occult processes and procedures and things I see now with the digital age. They're digital, they're equivalents, like the astral light and even the Akashic records. You know, you can look into your computer and see things that happened long ago, or see things that will happen in the far future, but they might not be exactly true because, you know, it's a product of human imagination. And so a lot of the things we're doing now, we don't think about it, they become automatic. These were described by occultists, you know, since the dawn of time. So they were more bioelectric equivalent of what we now have as digital. But it's possible right here, right before your eyes. Here we are. We're far away, but we're near each other. And we're talking, and you're listening. And wow.
And still, we have bits of energy, bits of light somewhere,
yes,
sometime. But we are about to even. We'll go forward and forget about these bits of light, and it will be almost immaterial, as you said. We are, and the AI is building this kind of strange world in which nothing is physical anymore. We are real. We hope so, kind of. But in the same time, we are talking together on a field that is made of energy.
Yes.
Exactly. So yes, we are using a physical channel. For me, I am using a satellite going to space and coming back to this coast. But for the time, we can do that just with our psychic abilities.
Yes.
So this is almost a physical demonstration or an energetical demonstration of this power.
Yes, it is, and again, it's amazing, but it's so commonplace that we don't think of it as amazing. A lot that we experience in our world, we experience wonders greater than the gods experienced in many mythological traditions. And
what do you mean? They are within the internet.
That's a conversation for another day and another book. But yes, you're absolutely right. The gods are on the internet; they're everywhere.
That's true, because you can connect. We didn't do that in the book, strangely, but it was a choice. In fact, you not connect these kind of subtle energies the energy field and the gods and goddesses, because we wrote other books talking about that already. But the connection was not highlighted in the book, but there is a connection. That means if you start to see what surrounds you and you start to open your inner perception, in this case, you will, in the same time, increase this power to contact other kind of energy fields or other kind of spiritual beings. So this is not the goal because you are training your astral vision, but in the same time, it opens these gates and these powers, which is useful in any kind of spiritual work. So this is not just the vision and the mysteries of the aura. This is not just how to interpret and work with subtle energies. This is discover the pathway to something even greater than that.
You hinted at that in our last Living Theurgy show, talking about our existence after death and why it's important to do this work. Can you repeat what you said? Because it was very, very powerful and thought-provoking.
Yeah, the point, because in the theosophical definition, they talk about physical body, astral body, etheric body, astral body, mental, causal. And you reach a point that there is something that is permanent, that is really yourself. Because this is exactly that. Who am I? This is, yes, I am my physical body, but in the same time, I am this energy field, I am this astral aura, but every part can disappear when I die. The physical body will disappear. The etheric aura will disappear in a few weeks.
Yeah.
The astral aura, technically, yes. If there is nothing going wrong, it can disappear. Mental, you can bring with you a few parts of it. And the causal is really the center of everything, the heart you can bring with yourself when you die. But your memory can travel with you. The memory of your life can travel with you. You can bring this experience with you as long as you are aware of what you are doing.
Yes.
As long as you control who you are, you keep this with you, and you have mastered in the past these abilities. This is why people, and we talk about theurgy from time to time, people who perform ceremonial magic and any kind of thing, this is fascinating, this is useful, that's true. But in the same time, regarding the last initiation we will have in our life, this is useless, or a lot is useless. Not everything, but a lot. So this is very important to see, okay, the ceremony is not useless. This is the way I do it. This is the way I see it. So if I really keep in mind that I have to build this psychic ability, and in the same time being aware and even more aware of everything, this is opening a very different world that is not just limited to this life. So seeing the aura is important for us today to know ourselves and to help others, but in the same time, it helps us to maybe to survive after death, in a way.
Yeah, that is very profound, because if you're sensitive to the realms beyond the physical, and regardless of how you do this, some people are sensitive to ghosts and spirits and things like that, astral shells. Some people are sensitive to nature spirits and elementals and folklore entities, or daemones, as they call them in Greek, or in modern Greek, sotika, the exotic ones. So people are sensitive to these energies, but they don't realize that these are separate realms. And our level of interaction is delusional in some senses too, because your brain is again making up the context to communicate. And if the spirit is powerful enough or wise enough, it can meet you halfway and help build this, whatever fairy tale you need to communicate with it and to understand. And the gods do that as well. When you first become aware of this, it's easy to get paranoid. Because they're tricksters, they're trying to fool me, they're taking different guises. But then you realize that no, this is the way they communicate, the way that you will hear them. And sometimes that involves creating a persona that you will believe in and trust, and then communicate. And I don't know, I was born remembering a lot from previous lives, just little snippets, not a great deal of information. And I've met other people too with some memory, and they asked me how I'm doing, and I told them I'm planning my next life. And people who don't know laugh, but I'm literally planning my next life. I learned things and I remember them, so now I want to make sure that I remember them again, and that next time, wherever and whenever next time is, I don't make some of the same mistakes, or I don't waste years getting to a point that I could have reached a lot earlier. But I didn't give myself permission, or I didn't think it was acceptable, or whatever. So it is a process, and it's a joyous process. And once you work on your aura, the astral self, the etheric self, you realize too that a lot of them are more vivid than this experience that we call waking life. Like even in the hypnagogic and the hypnopompic, it makes reality look grainy, like looking at an old television, So there are much more lucid states. And the better someone can understand this, and the better someone can navigate them, you're right, the better off they will be. Otherwise, they'll be in like the pool of forgetfulness. And when they come back, if they're not connected with their greater journey back to the source, they're going to just accept whatever they're born into, because that's what we do in dreams. In dreams, we're married to different people, we have different jobs, we live in different countries altogether, and we don't question it in the dream. That's the reality of the dream. So we don't question it, we just go along and accept everything is real. And then when we wake up, if we remember our dreams, like, oh wow, that was amazing, I wasn't me, I was someone else. And we also have spirits that accompany us. And these spirits, some people say they're very wise, some people don't. They're entities, and they too, it's like watching television. If you're watching television, you're one of those spirits, like metaphorically hanging on, because you're following someone else's life and you're identifying with it and you're learning through it, but you're not the person. And it happens over and over and over again. You could watch the same thing on DVD over and over and over again. And that too was known by the ancients in some of their more strange explanations. So you're going to go to the astral plane after this book. I'm looking forward to that too. When will that be out, Jean-Louis?
Yeah, that's you're really correct about these spiritual entities, ghosts, and so on. Because I guess this is almost at the end of the book. We are talking about that, saying that if you build this ability, and you know that if you start to see the aura and the different levels of energy, this is because you open your third eye, or doesn't matter how you call that, but you start to see the other side. You start to see the invisible world. And in this case, you don't see just the aura. You see also creatures, beings that are not physically manifested in this world. And I talk in the book a few times about past experience I had when I was younger, going in different places where poltergeists and sounds were manifested. And I was able to see and to release this kind of phenomenon because I was able to see what was happening. But this is exactly the same also walking in ancient city in France, cities in France, Europe, and stopping during the night on the side of the street and saying, let's look around on the other side. Is there anyone? And yes, sometimes in ancient cities, there are other people that are not physically there, and on the other side of the street or close to an old church. And you know, there are very old Roman things in France. And this is strange to realize that there are some beings that are still there and use the energy of people walking around to survive in a way. So when you open this vision and this ability to see on the other side, what you see are not just auras or living people, but also, as you said, other kind of creatures. Sometimes there were human beings, sometimes not. Not just spirits, or who knows, just maybe sometime a memory that really survived and used energy to continue its existence in a way, like a bubble flowing around and using the mind of people to survive. So this is a bubble of memory, a bubble of energy. And this interests me because we can see the past through this sphere of energy. And this is not a living being, but in the same time, there is a kind of life.
Yes.
So seeing the aura, what is interesting to understand that going through the training is not just being able to see your own aura and the aura of the other ones, but giving you the power to see the other world, which is much larger and fascinating and yes, interesting. You can, for the first time, maybe, you can not explore by yourself, not relying all the time from books and so on. But this is what we say at the beginning of the book. We say, we are not asking you to believe what we say.
Right.
This is not a question of faith or belief. This is a question of training. So you have a succession of progressive exercise. Don't believe us. Use the book as a map. Use the book as something you can use for your own education. But the heart of the book is this progressive training. So through that, you will experiment. And experimenting, you will see that what has been explained all over the world and what we explain is true. No matter the culture, no matter anyone has an aura, the trees, the rocks, everything around us, not at the same level, of course, of consciousness, but at least everything has an energy field around. We can work with it, we can see it. So you will verify by yourself. It will be a direct experience. So as you said, I did experience vision and memories from the past as you did yourself for the time I was very young. But what is fascinating, and I experimented that, I started to teach these techniques when I was, 15, something like that, 15 years old.
I was in my teens too. I was the medium, I guess you would call it, or the channel for a theosophical spiritualist group.
That's true. So in France, I was living at the time in the southwest of France, and I was the first one to create a kind of club in a high school saying, okay, we will experiment everything. We will try to hypnotize anyone, and we will teach. And we experimented a lot, from out-of-body experience to hypnotism, energy work, and so on. So this kind of technique you will discover in the book has been used for a very long time. This is not a decision I took at my age saying, oh, let's create a technique. This is a technique I used for a very long time, and I am using that in the workshops, in the training, in the room service, in different initiatory orders. So I have the experience to see how it works with people coming from different backgrounds and different cultures, Africa, South America, North America, Europe, and so on. And the fascinating thing is to see that it works. No matter your culture, you follow the training and you have the same experience. Not the same, really the same, because we are all different with a different experience and background and memory, but the effect is the same. Mm-hmm. So the progressive training is working. And I like to say that the book, yes, this is a book, but there is no need to read it as you are reading a novel. You have to use the book.
Right.
You have to use, and going from one point to another one, coming back to the first chapter, going to the last, and using the exercises. So this is not a novel, in fact. Yes, we tell stories inside, but the point is to use these techniques. And after that, to share that, to send us an email, share on the platform, and so on. This is what is interesting, to see what everyone can do with that.
I will definitely be sharing both on Living Theurgy, and we'll have a follow-up show when the next book is about to come out, and I'll share my adventures with this book, because look, and you're very generous with the exercises. There's over 40 of them.
Yeah. And as I said, the exercise, what I like to do, I did that in the previous book also, and the out-of-body experience will be the same. This is interesting. The book I wrote about the prayer beats was built in the same way. You can work alone, but you can have this individual work. This is, in any case, this is a basis. You must work by yourself, but working in pair is very interesting. And in group, you talked about the work with dreams. The group work is really great because you can build even greater things. So this is very exciting to work and to have these exercises that are not limited to individuals, but in the same time, not just for couples, for example. We don't care. You have both. So you can choose and use whatever is good for you from time to time, one and the other one. But a part I like very much in the book, but because that it has been important for me, was the perception of a memory of the aura of a place, of a house, of a castle, an ancient castle, for example. I am thinking about France and Europe, for example. Everything has a memory. Everything received this kind of impregnation, something that has been locked in the room or in the rock or in the wall or in a painting and so on. And when you start to feel this aura, when you start to see the aura, you can communicate with this power and receive teachings, receive communications. And this is interesting because you can first detect very fast if there is something that is not good for you, or at the opposite, very beneficial for you. And instead, and I talked in the other show about geobiology, for example, or ley lines.
Yes.
If you don't know how to feel or how to see, you can be in trouble sometime because you will have a chair at the wrong place. You will spend more time with someone who is bad for you or in a bad location and so on. And at the opposite, if you understand how to detect really, how to observe and understand, you will avoid a lot of mistakes. And you will learn from the place. And if you are more advanced, you can help also. This is what I did several times in places. I'm not talking about exorcism, even if I did that. But this kind of thing, you can release bad energies or unbalanced energies and rebalance a location, a place, anywhere. So this kind of perception go further than just seeing, but we have all to start by the beginning, because even when you have, from the time you were very young, this ability, sometimes we know how to do something. This is, for example, for me, because of past lives, I always knew how to do archery, for example, to use it. It was immediately I was good. That's it. But even if I was good because of this past, I had to learn a few things because I didn't remember all the tricks.
Right.
So even if you have a memory, you can learn something following a training. The only difference, you will go faster and you will be better in a short time. Other people will spend 1 year or 2 years to master what you will master in 2 months, for example, because of your past. But following a training is always useful anyway, because you come back on the basics, you understand more, you can select your perception, you can focus on few parts you forgot, or maybe you didn't know how to activate the third eye, because it can be very simple to do even in the daily life at any time. So there are things like that that are explained. Maybe we knew that like an instinct, an intuition, but this is good to know how it works, what is the process, and we can be maybe more effective to do that. Yes.
That's very true. I always gravitated toward the mind and altered states and things like that. So I sought, when I was in my 20s, a career in human services, in psychology. So I worked in psychiatric institutions, I worked in mental health centers, I worked in a lot of different things, and I got to know a lot of people and talk to them. And because I could perceive things also extrasensorily, a lot of times they were describing something that was in truth what they were experiencing, but we don't live in a culture that believes those truths and doesn't see those realities. So, that was always very difficult. Then I worked through what I needed to work through by doing that for decades. So I left the field. But now that I'm doing something else, now I'm doing some public service and political type things. All of those skills I developed going through the underworld, not only my own underworld, but other people's underworld, is coming in handy, because those skills I could use them for something else. So those skills, no matter how you got them in archery, it stays with you life after life. And like you said, if you cultivate it, it'll serve you better, and you'll be like one of these people who are born with the ability that we call geniuses, as you said.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes, because even genius, as you said, Michelangelo, anyone, they were already masters at 20 years old or 18 years old. They were already genius, but at one point they had to learn a few things.
Yes, the basics too. Yes.
Yes, and it was necessary for them to come back, even if it was a memory, who knows, but they had to use the hammer or the chisel and so on and start again. So, but they did that in what, a couple of years, and people will spend all their life to reach this level. So you can explain that in different ways, but the memory and past memories, past lives is, for me, one of the best answer. one
Yes.
of the best thing. And you know that in the Greek culture and the Mediterranean world and Eastern traditions, metempsychosis or reincarnation is something that was common.
Yes.
Not everywhere, but almost. And it makes sense, really. And sometimes people don't see they don't see the connection between the aura and past lives, for example, or reincarnation and so on. But in fact, there is one connection. This is just the fact to be aware of what is not visible and being able to learn directly from what is not physical. So this is really good. This is a challenge, but it's excellent because this is how you are cleaning your glasses on the windows in your room. You are at one point, you said, okay, let's clean the windows and see what is outside. And this is a decision you take and you, okay, there is a technique. What do you need?
But then it's the experience, because if you've never been outside, you can't understand outside with the experiences you have inside. It's like that proverbial cave where everyone is looking at their shadows and thinking that that's reality. We are in that position when we deal with other worlds. You're being exposed to a greater reality, but your reality is an illusion when you realize that. And the new reality doesn't follow the old rules. So you need to teach yourself to know anew from like nothing.
And the point is not to clean the cave itself, but to go back and ascend outside the cave.
Outside the cave, yes.
Yes, because I am sure you will have some people saying, okay, that's fine, let's clean the cave and we'll see better. No.
No.
Just face the fire first and then go out and you will see reality. So that means, in fact, if I'm correct, they use the word in the Platonic tradition, the word conversion. That means you have really to change your vision of the world.
Tanya, yeah.
Yes, and in this case, you understand that you have to do something. You cannot stay where you are. You have to go out to see things in a different way. In fact, to see the spiritual world, which is the real world, not the ghosts, as you said, and the shadows and everything.
You also bring up the archetypes in your book.
Yes.
And that's a different level of reality altogether, because there, when you start really looking into that and experimenting with it or playing with it or, trying to learn it, you have to ask yourself the question, once you see it at work, am I living or am I being lived? Because it's hard to know, because you're here and this is you and this is your life and this is your reality. But on a archetypal level, you're living stories that have been with humanity since the dawn of time, and you're like a variation of a timeless tale, your life, whatever you think it is. And when you start seeing it from that perspective, it's kind of like you're part of the digestion system of a god. That whatever you do, whatever, it doesn't matter really, whatever way you unfold, the God is absorbing the experience and the insights and things like that. So you can't not serve the God, because whatever the archetypal patterns that you're living are, they're things that the archetypal patterns learn to grow and free themselves from the patterns that they're stuck into. So it's that area alone is like a lifetime or many lifetime study.
That's true. And I was thinking, listening to you about these archetypes, and I was thinking about the light, because the aura is linked to the colors and the light. And obviously, the colors are the manifestation of several states of consciousness, emotions, and so on. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who is lying will have a different color suddenly, and so on. But if you ascend to the spiritual planes higher and higher, at one point, the colors will almost vanish, and we will have just one golden and one light which is white or almost transparent. And everything from the archetypes or from the manifestation on the other, in the other world of coming from your visualization or from your archetypes will vanish also. So when we are talking about the highest level of consciousness in this ascent, we are talking about samadhi, and we are talking about a state in which no representation exists, in fact. They disappear. So the light, when we are seeing the aura, we are still incarnated in this world. Our soul is embodied and mixed with emotion, with experience, with fears, excitement, and so on. But because we are not looking at the spiritual part of someone, we are looking at the emotional part or the memory part. And if we go higher and higher, the light will be very simple. It will be more an intensity, in fact, than something else. So you know that the astral world, for example, is full of illusions.
Yes.
That are real, in fact, because the energy is real, but they are ghostly manifestations. And when you work with theurgy or any kind of real spiritual work, you will reach a level in which this is the quality and the intensity of the light which is manifested that is interesting to observe. And as you said, sometimes, and this is what we have a representation of in the book, the causal body, the most elemental part of ourselves, is sometimes like a crystal or like a very geometrical shape. You can think about the Platonic solids, for example, and they can manifest these really the heart of yourself, who you are from one life to the other. This kind of very strange magical box in which you put everything at the end of your life, and you want to carry that in the other one. If you are lucky enough to not lose the key, you are good. Good to go.
A good practice, I think, for that is remembering your dreams at night, so that you become used to having recall rather than just being in this world and in your imagination.
Exactly.
Also into other states of being, and that's part of why I remember my dreams. Yeah, I like not wasting time. So if I'm living other lives, I want to experience those too. And yeah, you're right. There are states that your experience is a crystalline intelligence, and then there's I've always found too, there's like a golden white and then a white on top of the golden, and there you get to a point where it's very strange to describe, but there's awareness, but there's no separateness.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and like the way it translates into your brain, or at least it did in my brain, is you could see in all directions at once. And there's a knowingness of awareness, but there's no knowingness of separateness.
Yeah, and the point is really strange, because in you know that I'm teaching yoga also,
Yes.
and yoga nidra, and a lot of people are talking about non-dualistic vision, philosophy, non-dualistic vision of the world. And in the book, it seems that we embrace dualistic. That means there is a physical, visible world, and there is an invisible world, and this is spiritual, and so on. So this is dualistic. But in the same time, we embrace that because this is what we experience now, here and now. And what I discovered doing these exercises is, if you pretend to not be dual, you fool yourself.
Yes.
Because you are not at the level you were talking about 1 second while ago. You reach a level at one point, but not at the beginning. At the beginning, you have to understand, yes, we are not yet at this level of consciousness. So we are dual, there is a visible and an invisible. I embrace that, I master that, I learn how to go from one to the other, and then I can progressively ascend and reach the level we are talking about. So there is a mistake to start as if we are already there. This is not the case. we have not reached this level yet. Some people can pretend to do it, but you see in their life that they didn't. And they know themselves. They know themselves. They fool others maybe, but they know when they are looking in the mirror, they know who they are, really. So if we embrace that, saying, okay, we are like that, and I am okay with that, so I have to learn how to see the other part. And then the separation between these two worlds will almost disappear. At least I will control it because I need to control it, because I am living in this life. So I am not a ghost, I am not a pure spirit, I have a physical body. And the Mediterranean diet told us that we have to enjoy life. So we have to enjoy life, use a good diet, and then learn how to see the other world. This is the best philosophy, I guess, that can come from the Mediterranean world.
And I'm going to have you on for the Mediterranean diet and the Mediterranean yoga. I have neuropathy. Yes. That's one of the things physically I struggle with. So part of my reason for wanting to do energy work is to get the energies to flow better to help in my self-healing. And I used to be able to do, I was really good with making energy balls of all sizes and making them move up and down my body and into other people's bodies. And, you know, that was once upon a time. I finally, after months of exercise, I can do a decent energy ball, but I can't do much with it. So I'm hoping by, in addition to all the other benefits of going through your program, that's one of the benefits I hope to gain, you know, health-wise. But I definitely want to talk to you about the Mediterranean yoga, the Mediterranean diet, and we have shows for those as well. I have lots of shows.
It'll be a pleasure.
And I'm going to ask you one question before I ask for your contact information. This is something that has been occupying my thought for a long time. I don't believe we're on the physical plane. We're not living in the world of natural forces like animals or very primitive people. We're living in our imagination, our language, everything we surround ourselves with, every single object, the paint on our walls, the roof on top of our head, our cities are the products of imagination. So I believe we're living on the astral plane, not very high on the astral plane, but we are living on the astral plane because our entire lives are built on interacting with imaginations, not only our own, but the imaginations of others who put together all the pieces that we assemble to create our reality. So what do you think of that?
A lot. I think I agree with that because for many reasons, I agree with that. And in the same time, what I like to see is if this is true, and if in the same time I can enjoy physical pleasures, I welcome them. So this is as if I can use both. Okay, this is a nice representation creation by I don't know whom, but I can use it on the invisible level. But the fantastic thing is I can also enjoy the physical pleasure, I mean, as you said, pleasures, enjoyable life that is coming from what I consider as physical, as a manifestation, a denser manifestation, in fact. So if I fell on the floor, I will hurt myself. The physical body will tell that this is painful. The same if I eat something very, I will enjoy it. So this part, I do not even try to challenge it. I say, okay, this is a foundation. I am married with this manifestation. And after that, let's see what we have around.
That's how I view it too. It's a reality, obviously, of some sort. I don't know why it's here. Sometimes it's magical because of synchronicity. If you pay attention to all the coincidences that happen, you see that this is not, you're not abandoned here. You know, there's definitely something going on. Jean-Louis, thank you so very much. I'm looking forward to reading your book and trying everything in it. I'm looking forward to our next talk, whether it be on Living Theurgy or another show. And I'm greatly appreciative of the time that you gave to introduce us to this book. How can people find the book and how can they contact you and enter your world?
So the book is Mysteries of the Aura. You can see it here.
You're better at that than I am.
Google the book and you will find it on any Amazon website or Llewellyn website. Some people living on the other part of the world, Australia and so on, told me that Llewellyn is very interesting, but the shipping is very high. Yes, so go on Amazon and you will receive the book faster like that. If you have any questions, if you want to share your experience, you go on my website and you will have the links to the shows and aura readings and so on. And my website is my name, as you can see on the book, debiasi.org.
And I'm creating another show that I have you in mind as the first guest, as you were on this show, on esoteric masonry.
Yes, very interesting. I wrote 4 or 5 books in French and 2 already with Llewellyn in English. Yes.
And I will be getting those books, reviewing those books, and then inviting you on to speak about those books.
It will be a pleasure. We have to talk about Freemasonry at one point.
Thank you, Jean-Louis. Have a wonderful day, and you're incredible. What can I say?
Same to you. Thank you.